So you ready to go with this?
Report card, let's get started.
All right, here it is. Here's the first one here, the A grades.
Okay, now I gave a whole bunch of A grades, but these are the marquee teams at the top of the board that we're going to pay attention to. Philadelphia Super Bowl champion. That means you draft way back late. How does Philadelphia finagle everything to the point Super Bowl finalists did not win the title, but they were in the Super Bowl game? How do they have a mega draft like they had? They kept making deals, multiple number one picks, and the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, had the best draft in all. I mean, it obviously starts with Jalen Carter, the cement block, big defensive tackle who had dropped down the board. It goes to Nolan Smith, a teammate of his at Georgia, who's a blitz linebacker with just electric speed. And then, as the draft was ending on the first day, they made a trade to get a heavy-duty running back, DeAndre Swift of the Detroit Lions. And there was a whole mixed bag of other guys. I think Philadelphia had the best draft of anybody. Seattle. Now, they bypassed on the chance to get Jalen Carter. They bypassed on taking one of the quarterbacks. It might have included Will Levis, who was falling down the board. And yet they came out with a killer. Devin Weatherspoon, really good cornerback from Illinois. I look at him and I see Richard Sherman. That's not a bad comparison. And they went out and got another wide receiver, burner inside, slot guy, Jackson Njiga. I from Ohio State. I think Seattle had a really good draft. I'm giving an A grade to the Chargers. They had specific needs. They went out and they filled those needs. They got a little bit lucky. Maybe they reached a little bit. But every guy they got comes to work with passion play stamped on his driver's license. These guys love to play, and these guys are fanatical about being fanatical playing football. So therefore, I gave the Chargers a letter grade of A. I think that Quentin Johnston is going to be a big-time player because he can play all three positions. He's 6'5", 215, got an extra gear, yards after catch, superb. Again, because the Chargers have enormous salary cap issues a year from now, this guy is going to replace one of the guys that's going to have to leave, and whether that's Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, was a big-time player. Most everybody had him because of the size and the explosive 19 yards per catch at TCU. They had him as the number one ranked wide receiver. Then the Chargers went out because they really needed pass rush help, and they got the kid from USC. We might have been the only piece of defense that USC could be proud of, but getting Tuli Tuiapoluto to come in and play defensive tackle or outside as a defensive end, big and physical and fast. He can run, multi-position guy. And then they went and got a kick return guy and a punt return guy who was one of the tops in the nation, in Darius Davis from TCU. 22 yards per return, 15 yards per punt return, scored 5 times on punt returns in college football. I just think the Chargers had the bonanza of a draft. Houston, they surprised everybody by taking C.J. Stroud. That solves the quarterback issue that's been lingering for a chunk of years there. They got Will Anderson. And the intangible about everything in the offseason in Houston, nobody's paid attention to. They signed 17 free agents, veteran free agents, and 12 of the 17 were on their defense. They rise from the ashes, I think, really quick in Houston. And there's no doubt D'Amico Ryans is calling a lot of the player personnel shots. And I'll give Pittsburgh a gold star. Not sexy to draft an offensive tackle, defensive tackle, but that's what the Steelers did. And they got good guys who can play. This tackle who comes from Georgia is really good, Broderick Jones. Then they got Joey Porter, the cornerback, safety out of Penn State. He's the son of the former Steelers star linebacker, Joey Porter. And keep in mind, they traded for the route-running wide receiver. The Rams couldn't fit into their offense, former Chicago Bear, Allen Robinson, and the Rams are paying a huge chunk of his salary. I just think Pittsburgh had themselves a really good draft. I like the Dallas Cowboys draft. They got a house wrecker of a defensive tackle in Mosey Smith from Michigan. There's a whole bunch of other teams. But if you go to my website, you'll look team by team by team, the letter grade I gave. But I thought those were the marquee ones at the top of the board. Tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm wrong.
It's funny because you look at the board and there's all those guys from Georgia that went to the Eagles, but the Chargers got a lot of guys from TCU, right? So do you think some of these NFL GMs sort of fall in love with certain college programs?
I think they fall in love with schemes and what the guys are running and the success these guys are having. I mean, there's no doubt that Georgia's got potential more NFL players now than Alabama and Nick Saban has. I think the TCU thing, it's a one-year thing. These guys came together. They had a really good season. They recruited a lot of blazing speed. They got football players who transferred in. So San Diego, I should say the Chargers, just looked at the makeup of TCU's players, how they approached the game, and the needs that the Bolts had on their depth chart. I think the Chargers really did well. Okay.
And you were actually wondering why the Lions took all those running backs. I mean, now we kind of know, right?
Well, they took one from Alabama because they decided we're going to get rid of the other guy. They didn't get fair market value. DeAndre Swift was a second-round pick at the top of the second round. Had a lot of injuries when he was healthy, really productive. All they got for him was a fourth-round draft pick. So they wound up losing in the equation. I thought Detroit had a pretty good draft, too.